Minecraft is a fun game sometimes, but it has a lot that's holding it back from reaching its full potential, and I wanted to talk about that. The first thing I wanted to talk about was Minecraft's empty spaces being shrunk more and more to cram in more content. The character of Minecraft since the start, at least the start of it being a real playable game, has been one of emptiness and loneliness. Minecraft was, for quite a long time, a game set in a primarily quiet, undisturbed world, but one that was vast and mysterious and full of things to explore. A big part of what made this characterization so pronounced was the use of white space and emptiness in the game's design. The further back you go, the more sparse the world becomes in terms of anything non-natural. You were always very alone in the world. Minecraft used to have vast, empty spaces broken up rarely by elusive, unique structures, such as the Jungle Temple or Desert Temple. But Minecraft's design has taken a sharp turn. Now, everything is much more crowded and crammed together. Every biome has to have 15 different above-ground structures full of enchanted books and emeralds and gold and iron, and your base has to constantly be swarmed by wandering traders, skeleton cavalry, pillagers, and phantoms. It's clear that Microsoft has a very different game design philosophy from the one Mojang had when Minecraft first started taking off. Perhaps the most clear example of this is Minecraft's oceans. If you look at a map of a Minecraft world generated from Beta 1.8 to Java Edition 1.6, it looks like a somewhat realistic collection of continents, separated by large oceans with little specklings of Mushroom Island biomes in between. Now, looking at the same seed in 1.20, it looks like a mess. The oceans are more like puddles, spattered amidst an endless patchwork of biomes, all smashed up next to each other. There's no discernible continents or land masses, and you can easily walk anywhere you need to go. Longtime players may be quick to point out that the reasoning behind this change is that in 1.6 and earlier versions, oceans were totally barren and featured no content. The only thing you could find here were squids and endless rolling hills of gravel underwater. Therein lies the beauty, though. Not every chunk of the map had to house some level 999 Omega Death Dragon dungeon, where you can get enchanted netherite tools within the first 3 minutes of spawning. These areas were meant primarily to be barriers, challenges for you to overcome in exploring the world. The enormous oceans of 1.6 meant that if you wanted to travel somewhere far from home, there'd be no easy way to get back in a hurry. If you wanted to explore a distant area, you'd have to sail over on a boat and bring enough supplies to establish yourself a little outpost. And maybe you'd find something unique like a biome or structure that wasn't present on your home continent. With significant effort, you could establish another highway to travel back and forth, but until then, whatever you didn't bring with you or find there, you didn't have access to. That doesn't mean that oceans were perfect, but I think it does mean that the right way to improve them, from my perspective, would be to lean into that intent and make it more challenging and exciting to traverse them, rather than just making them tiny and filling them with tons of free loot. But that's not the kind of gameplay Microsoft wants to foster. Microsoft wants the 6-year-olds to be able to spawn in and immediately walk 3 feet to a shipwreck and get epic diamonds, so that they don't get bored with their 6-second TikTok attention span. Can't have them lose interest before they could turn their mom's credit card loose on the marketplace, after all. And that's why oceans are the way they are now. Small and packed full with 1,500 of the same 3 structures repeated over and over and over right next to each other. Ocean ruins, shipwrecks, ruin portals. I mean, who wants to have to mine and craft to get gold or iron or emeralds when you could just swim to an underwater chest and grab them for free? And it's not just oceans. Look at deserts. They're supposed to be barren, empty areas that are intentionally difficult to survive, with no trees for wood. Look at the desert-only survival challenges for the kind of cool stuff that this design allows for. But oh no, what if little Timmy spawns in a desert, and he doesn't get enchanted diamond gear within the first 2 minutes of playing? He might quit and not have his mom pay for a realm server. Better add 50 million things to the biome ASAP. So for Minecon, they made a whole presentation about how they'd like to add palm trees and meerkats. Why? Isn't this supposed to be an inhospitable, empty, barren biome? Why is their first instinct to take away what makes it unique and make it just another identical, samey location? Oceans and deserts aren't the only 2 biomes. I could go on. It seems like the whole overworld is being given this treatment. Even the frozen oceans, an uninhabitable field of icebergs, is home to shipwrecks and underwater ruins and wandering traders and pillager patrols and ruined portals. Everywhere you go, there's ruined portals. There's illager outposts, there's pillager patrols, there's shipwrecks on every coast, and so on. Trying to get away to a frigid remote region of the world, here's an igloo and a villager. Bottom of the ocean, here's some shipwrecks and ruins. Even if you move to the middle of the ice spikes or frozen ocean, some wandering trader will still show up with his llamas like a pushy car salesman trying to sell you stuff. It's not like you have to create a trading post or something to summon him, he'll just show up whether you want him to or not. There's no escaping it. Just because a biome is desolate doesn't mean it can't have good content. It doesn't have to conform to being a palette swap of a forest or plains biome, and it doesn't have to have a million of the same structure right next to each other. Look at the end, for instance. It takes the void style and runs with it to great effect. Here, instead of just being able to walk everywhere, there's little collections of floating islands, separated by empty space that you can only traverse by building bridges or using ender pearls. Unless you have an elytra, but you won't the first time you enter the end. Now granted, the end could definitely be improved somewhat. People have come up with a lot of cool ideas for improving the end over the years and suggested many variations of an end update. New mobs, new biomes, new terrain generation. I really like what the Alex's Mobs mod did with adding the Spectre, a passive mob that you can attach yourself to using a lead in order to hitch a ride along its flight path. It also adds the Cosmic Cod that usually like to hang out above thin air, and the Cosmo, a mob that can be tamed with said cod, and will from then on save you if you fall into the void. The mod expands on the concepts of the biome rather than throwing them away to make it more similar to everywhere else. But what would Microsoft's version of improvement be? They'd probably just add a new purple tree type and a bunch of ender zombies everywhere, along with removing the gaps between islands for being too boring, and then add a bunch of end runes so you can loot emeralds and gold and diamonds from them. This is the issue that Microsoft's version of Minecraft has with its oceans and with so many other areas of the game. They want to equalize every area of the game to avoid them being boring or annoying or difficult, instead of working with what makes them unique to actually make them stand out and be exciting. So, in the interest of my criticism being constructive, what could we do to make oceans more interesting? Well, for one thing, I'd like to go back to continental generation and make ocean structures much more rare. But what new content can we add to make these large areas of the map more engaging? With the caves and cliffs changes to verticality, I'd love to see massive drop-offs going way down to Y0 out in the open water between continents. Maybe even abyssal trenches below the bedrock. I could imagine a sailing update adding trawling nets for more efficient fishing, and horrible sea monsters out in the depths guarding secluded and rare shipwrecks. Instead of having 50 on every beach filled with late game loot, make them feel special. Maybe you could even have different types of fishing rod that allow you to catch different varieties of fish. Craft a heavy-duty rod to catch big tuna that provide better food, or a deep-sea rod to catch deep-dwelling anglerfish that can be used in post-brewery, depending on the rod you use and the biome you use it in. Also, one note here is that adding more fish mobs might create an inventory space issue. I'm a big fan of the solution to that problem from the mod Aquaculture 2 by Shadow, which I've used for some of the footage of this video. Here you can cut the different sorts of fish up into varying quantities of fillets, allowing them to all stack together, rather than having 7 different varieties of cooked fish all fighting over inventory space. For another improvement, you could even add unique biomes that only spawn far away and isolated from continents, like the Mushroom Islands used to be. Remember when those were a cool, rare biome that everyone wanted to see? Why not add tropical islands with palm trees and coconuts that you could bring back home and grow? Or treacherous volcanic islands where rich ore veins are guarded by pockets of lava embedded in the terrain. And you could make the oceans more treacherous to cross as well. Put some real monsters out there that can shatter that little 5-plank wooden boat in one hit. But give us bigger and better boats with hit points and storage solutions that can withstand the journey. I don't mean huge sailing ships like you see in some mods necessarily, but you could at least see some larger boat entities within the size realm of other entities already in the game. Speaking of the size of entities though, huge oceans would be a great place to put some truly massive mobs. Look at the whales from the Endless Ocean Aquatic Adventure mod and Alex's mobs for a good example of what I mean. Not that you have to stop there even. Look at this model made by Gundam Yukon, the developer of the Wormroost mod. Wouldn't that be a lot cooler than just having blue zombies that have sat in the hot tub for too long and gotten wrinkly? Even aside from mobs, you could do some cool stuff with entities. What about ice chunks in frozen ocean biomes that float around and damage your ship if you collide with them? Let me sail way out into the ocean and go pearl diving. harvesting pearls from clams while avoiding toxic jellyfish or aggressive jungle squid. Let me find a curious octopus and throw items on the ground to trade with him for the gold bar he's holding. Then have him jet me with ink if he's unsatisfied with the trade. And have all of it be rare. Let it be special. Let it be unique. There doesn't need to be a flashy piece of content every 5 steps that I take. If you take a step back and give the world some space, it won't make it boring. It will make those unique things you can add all the more special when we do find them in our worlds. Unfortunately, Microsoft's philosophy leans a lot more in the direction of wide as an ocean, deep as a puddle, than these kinds of in-depth systems, so it's not something we're likely to see. I initially wanted to talk about more than just oceans and an overload of structures in this video. I also wanted to talk about enchanting, transportation, how Mojang totally defeated the point of the Woodland Mansion, and about the infamous shark incident, but the script has become so long that I decided it'd be better to just make those into separate videos. Subscribe if you're interested in seeing those. Make sure you rate 5 stars and share the video on LinkedIn and Blogger and Mix and Goo, whatever those are. Or better yet, if you liked the video, I'd appreciate a like. Dislike it if you disliked it, and tell me your thoughts in the comments. Thanks!